Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Joes of all ages, welcome to the main event of the evening. It's Talking Joe with Chief and Steve.
Yo! Yo, Joe! Yo, Joe!
Hey! Chiefy Two Shoes in his house, joined by you in your house.
S-Jubb 7. Hey, it's
Yeah.
Chiefy Two Shoes. It's not one shoe. It's not three shoes. It's two shoes. What's the history behind that?
That Chiefy Two Shoes I was actually over, cheap plug, at my buddy Ben from the Out of Timers. I was over at his house, him and his brother Gav. I think we're just coming up with play on words for me being called Chief, and Chief and Chiefy were several, and they just randomly one day said Chiefy Two Shoes because I was wearing two shoes. And,
Wow, fancy that.
yeah, that's it. And I think it ended up being, which never really got used by anyone else. When I would come through the door, they'd say, "Hey, it's Chiefy Two Shoes, 8 pairs, rubber nipples." I don't know what any of that means.
Just keep tacking on new terms, like eventually your name takes about 3 minutes to say.
That's it.
Hey, Chief, how you doing, my brother?
Yes, I am well. I'm excited to do this pod. I've read the issues and I'm actually jazzed about them, so I can't wait to get to Comic Talk. I do have 3 things that I want to catch up with you on, which the first one being, have you watched... We're not going to go in depth here, don't worry, listeners, it's not another Roger Moore segment. However, I am going to ask you which other Roger Moore Bonds you've watched in the last few weeks.
I didn't miss a single one. From The Spy Who Loved Me. Gosh, what's next? No, I lie. I did give Octopussy the skip. But everything else, I watched, ending up with View to a Kill, with the very unhinged Christopher Walken. Man, that guy chews the scenery, and it's gorgeous. He is fantastic.
And how did you feel overall with that Roger little mini marathon? Was it good times?
Hey, man, he has got such expression just with his eyes. He's a very understated Bond. And then straight after that, you thrown into Timothy Dalton land, who was, as I said before, my kind of first brushing with the Bond character, and he is very intense. I mean, there's a lot more going on. Maybe it's because he's a younger man at that stage, and he's really kind of sweating a lot and throwing women around and getting messed up and blood coming out of the mouth and all that jazz. I mean, did they ever have any blood on Roger, ever? The man was untouchable.
He's spotless, yeah.
Wow,
good stuff. Second thing I want to touch on is I have been painting some minis recently. I don't know if the listeners have seen the posts I've been putting up on the socials. Been painting some Star Wars Imperial Assault miniature figures, which has been occupying my time for the last few weeks because I've been working from home, quotation marks.
Chief, you are an artiste, man. Those things came out fantastically.
I do stress
that
I am in no way, shape or form a professional or expert painter. I do, in fact, I have here some miniatures that I painted when I reckon I was about 14 or 15, and I'll post these up on the socials so people can see if at all I've advanced over the years. So these are some kind of dwarf
backwards, of course.
Dwarf Warhammer figures. This is from about 30 years ago, possibly. But yeah, I've definitely improved. And this Star Wars Imperial Assault game, it's been taken over by Fantasy Flight Games, but it's been kind of usurped by Star Wars Legion, which is more of a tabletop measure and move, whereas Star Wars Imperial Assault is a modular board with hexes where you actually move your figure a designated number of spaces rather than measuring. But I'm keen to get this back onto the board game table, so anyone out there who is local to the South London area wants to play Star Wars Imperial Assault, hit us up. I'll see if we can organise a game when we come out of these trying times.
Chief, the problem with having a former fan now co-host is that I remember a lot of stuff that was said in previous episodes. And the one nugget that segues quite nicely here is you were at one stage devising a G.I. Joe tabletop game.
Wow,
Did that kind of stop in its infancy, or is this some tangible plan that we can kind of follow on?
You pay the penalty when your co-host is a fountain of all knowledge and memory banks. So no, you are right. I was looking at some kind of G.I. Joe based tabletop game. Yes, it did unfortunately die a death, so to speak. Someone did. Who was it? Someone sent me an article recently. I think it was one of my friends who showed me something that or maybe it was a Twitter feed. One of the Sedans maybe sent me this of someone who had pitched a miniature-based G.I. Joe game to Hasbro that got rejected. Got the red letter, the red X, and that kind of put me off, thinking that someone professionally has already tried pitching it and been rejected. But I mean, you know, you're right.
Buddy, Hasbro are the masters of rejection. They've even demolished their own G.I. Joe fan convention. So we just got to do it under the table, you know? Fans are doing it for themselves.
That's it. Okay, Mark, you're fine. You've more homework for the Chief as normal. From
Oh,
S-Jubb's
no.
redesign. Let me get a pen. I've got a pencil here. Pick up redesign of G.I. Joe board game. Right down.
Buddy, and if you know, you don't need to make playing pieces that you would then paint unless you really want to. You can use the action figures themselves.
That's it.
Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Listen,
It
I'm
must
moving
be
on.
done.
I'm moving on. I've got one more thing, and then I'm going to let you tell everyone what you've been up to, so I don't hog the limelight. But listen, have you got any solutions or remedies or anything? I've got a load of mouth ulcers. Now, these came on about 3 or 4 days ago, and I've got about 5 or 6. Now, I used to get these quite badly as a kid, and you know, the mothership always told me it was due to eating too much chocolate. But I do believe now also stress and anxiety can bring it on. I think I have been stressed and anxious about, you know, especially with the current climate recently, about health and job security and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's been necessarily the cause of these mouth ulcers, but they're really starting to piss me off, man. It's like I'm struggling while I'm speaking to you now to not have a bit of a lisp and not have a bit of extra saliva in my mouth. It's a horrible,
it's a horrible scene. Most of the talking.
Well, that hasn't been the case so far, but have you got any solutions for me?
I would have to wake Dr. Kim, man. I mouth ulcers, honestly, I think it's got to do with getting enough rest, Chief. Doesn't it have a role to play?
Yes,
Are you sleeping well?
I have not been sleeping too badly, but as you mentioned previously, I am struggling with the amount of hobbies I'm trying to consume at the moment. I'm trying to watch all those movies for the Outer Timers battle. I'm trying to now watch Clone Wars, which animated on Disney Plus, because that's going to be another new pod that's coming out. I'm trying to learn editing skills for that.
Raise a child.
I'm trying to raise a child. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I'm trying to raise a child. I'm trying to paint all these minis again. You know, there's too much. I'm trying to read comics day and night. I've got too much going on, and I
Chief
do
doesn't
feel
do anything by half.
That's it. I do feel that the hobbies
machine.
are suffering. But anyway, that's enough about me. How have you been this past week, sir?
Buddy, yesterday marked the first day I could touch my wife. Thanks to
Steve,
our global lives.
S-Jubb 7 was getting jiggy with Mr. Biggie.
No, look, I mean, whatever. That maybe that comes later. She just got back from work yesterday, and it was just wonderful. I mean, I feel like we're still in our honeymoon phase. It's been a year and a half of married life, if you can call it that. I mean, we've kind of been apart as much as we've been together at this stage.
Yeah.
But it seems like the world has forced us to stay still in one place for a time, and it's wonderful. I mean, we're just
good.
kids.
Good.
Friends.
Pleased for you.
Yeah, thanks,
Pleased
man.
for you.
So, I mean, that's the big news. Yay. Outside of that, everything else just kind of blurs into the margins. It's lovely, Chief. It really is.
Listen. I'm a bit behind on the G.I. Joe podcast. I'm a couple behind, but I did listen to the last
Chief,
one. Was
you got enough on your plate already, man.
episode 166, and you're talking about the hostile environment troopers. And yeah, I messaged the Facebook group saying I'm an OG Action Force guy, so Airtype figured quite heavily there. But I do like the look of the Sludge Viper on the card art. Thoughts on that or not? Not so much the figure itself, but the actual card art I really like.
Okay, so the figure design on the card, I've got sort of artist friends who would be offended by the kind of sludge explosion happening behind him, as opposed to the regular classic explosion. But the art itself, I'm actually just trying to think about it from memory. What is it exactly that turns you on? It's quite bold. I mean, the yellows and the aqua.
I think it's just the design of the character. I quite like the kind of lines.
Star Warsy about his it's like a spacesuit. I think having the action figure as a child, I did often use him as a space trooper in a more sort of general science fiction type play pattern. It wasn't necessarily G.I. Joe, so he could therefore be the hero. I just liked the colourful suit. And the thing about the card arts, if memory serves, you can actually see his eyes behind the red glass, which is interesting. I mean, you don't often get that with Cobra Troopers, to actually see the eyes.
That's it.
Especially with a non-removable helmet. I mean, you're not going to be able to see the eyes on the action figure, but in the arts, you get that engagement with the character.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up now. You're right. Yeah, it does it's got that kind of translucent-y visor.
Very cool. Wish the action figures of the time could have translucent panels on their helmets. Yeah, amazing. They do that now. I mean, it is common to find translucent panels on helmets. In fact, they mold the helmets in a translucent plastic and then just paint the solid parts.
Really?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's a paratrooper called Airborne, or was it Airwave? I don't know. Modern G.I. Joes kind of blur a little bit for me too. I'm all about the classics, baby.
That's it. Listen, it's about coming up on 7 a.m. your time, so it must be time for you to eat a snack, surely.
Oh, I'm hungry.
Potato chips, crisps, biscuits and candy, washing them down with a whiskey or a brandy, chewy sweets, cookies, built around jerky, snacks running fair because we got them at our mercy. We're snackers, attackers, bad mother truckers, and we're eating all the crackers, munchers, crunchers, knockout snacks like we're heavyweight punchers. The snack police are in there. Here's out.
Today is the end of the Filipino snacks. So Kim, the absolute doll, went out and got me something called Yeko corn snack, baked, not fried, barbecue flavor, and 70 grams. I think it's Indonesian. It's got Bahasa and Chinese on the package.
Yep.
Here we go. So yes, once again a savory snack. Not once again a savory snack. I had a sweet snack last time. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to kill time while I get into this bag, which is a lot thicker than South African sort of crisps bags. Okay, so back home we've got a brand called Knickknacks. It looks like a similar thing. They're made out of maize, so therefore...
We got the Knickknacks in the UK. They are good, man.
Ah, you've got Knickknacks.
Yeah.
What if that's a South African import now kind of taken up by the Brits? Anyway, for American listeners, this would be similar to Cheetos, except it doesn't look like it's covered in tartrazine. I mean, these are not orange. Anyway, here we go. Yep, they definitely are Knickknacks, but a lot less flavoursome.
Okay. Yeah, because Knickknacks, they pack a punch.
Oh my goodness, yeah. The best drink at least a gallon of water after a bag of those. Barbecue really subtle, but fortunately the bag's absolutely fresh, having just been ripped. So they got a good old crunch.
Nice.
What you snacking on, Chief?
I've got a Kiddylicious, It's Delicious veggie straws. So I've stole this from my daughter.
But
it says I was low on snacks. I didn't get a chance to get out into the shops. This is gluten-free, suitable for 9 months plus. Ideal finger food, and on the front it's got a picture of some of these veggie straws with faces on. So let's crack these open. 12 grams, so I am lacking in the... Jeepers, how'd you get into it? How's a kid meant to get into these? Alright, I'm in.
They get overcome by the hunger for snacks.
Right, okay, these are interesting. They're kind of... They're a bit like did you get in South Africa as crisps French fries?
No, that's been a recent thing, I think.
Okay.
The first time I encountered sort of string fries was when I was in Germany.
Right.
The sort of bags of like really skinny, crispy fries.
Okay, well these aren't. I think we've got these in the UK they're called like chipsticks, but French fries. These look a bit like French fries, so I'll try and take a picture of both. But they're kind of puffed out, kind of tubes. They're almost like a macaroni kind of tubes, but longer. But yeah, tasty.
And points for being healthy. Actually, I mean that should be another thing we compare. Is like, okay, who's winning in the health stakes? Because I'm just eating like fried corn. Kill me quick.
Right, listen, we are caught up, we are snacked up, now we need to get comicked up, so it's time for Comic Talk. It's Comic Talk, baby. Chief and Steve discussing like crazy. Larry Harmer riding these bad boys, making sense of the wackiest toys. Listen as we talk about story arcs, making noise louder than Junkyard Box, talking about character motivations and all the various G.I. Joe fun locations. Okay, we are covering this week issues 175 and 176 of G.I. Joe Real American Hero from IDW. This is February and March from 2012. Now, interestingly, before we dig into it, in my bind, now I haven't read these since I had them custom bound, I go from issue 175 into the 2012 annual. Then I go to 176. So, what I'm suggesting is, next week we cover the Real American Hero 2012 annual.
I shall track it down. I'm not sure if I even have that. What's, in brief, what is the story about?
I didn't read it. I read 175, I skipped it, and I went to 176 for the purposes of this pod. Because when I read it, I have read it.
Relates to
I have read it when it came out, but I can't remember it. But it's got Ron Wagner and Herb Trimpe art, and Ron Friends, which you'll be quite excited about. It looks like when I'm looking through it. Well, I don't really want to spoil it for myself, so I don't know if it relates. Is the upshot to that?
Interesting.
But anyway, for those who are new or didn't read the issues or need to catch up, here it is. Last time on A Real American Hero. When Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow and Billy discover a Russian Arashikage dojo in Brooklyn, New York, the master of the dojo tells them about a new threat to the Arashikage, the Blue Ninja Clan. Suddenly, this mysterious force launches a destructive attack on the dojo, managing to kill Billy in the melee. Storm Shadow vows revenge on the Blue Ninja Clan. He and Snake Eyes deliver the body to Cobra Commander before heading off to talk to Sensei Moscovina, a former member of the Blue Ninjas who has become an android herself. She leads them to Revanche Robotics in New Jersey, where Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow and Boris, the Russian master, find a fully built robot that suddenly activates. Meanwhile, Cobra Commander swears revenge on the Blue Ninjas and begins the hunt for his son's killers. The news even reaches Destro and Baroness, who seem nonplussed by the tragic news.
One take wonder once again, ladies and gentlemen. Though the pressure's stacking up, Chief, when's it going to break?
The Chief can break it any time, so don't worry about that. Listen, I probably had more fun with these two issues than any since it relaunched the IDW run with 155 and a half.
There's an interesting tone running through them, wouldn't you say? There's like a Terminator / this kind of body horror Exorcist vibe.
I've written down Exorcist on my pad, which we'll come to in a bit, about the lady Dr. Shen who's on the ceiling, head turning kind of spider thing. Oh, it's creepy.
Yeah, man, very creepy. You could definitely put on the soundtrack to Resident Evil and read this by candlelight. Get
the tone
spooky vibes.
Yeah, the tone feels kind of markedly different here in that everything is ratcheting up to 11 almost in terms of tension and suspense and kind of threat level.
We learn a lot more about the Blue Ninjas' plan, and it seems that I need to keep calling them that because their leader, well, we'll get there, but I mean, there's an interesting, I think it's an acronym in the naming convention, but as I say, we'll get there. Shall we get stuck into the covers?
shit the bed. I forgot about that. So
That old chestnut.
175. I have the cover of Snake Eyes and Baroness, which is the S.L. Gallant and Gary Erskine cover. And just to
Brilliant,
let
on
people
just a white blank background.
Yeah, the interiors here on both issues are Larry Hama writing, obviously, S.L. Gallant as the artist, and Gary Erskine's the inker with Andrew Crossley on colours. But yeah, that first cover, kind of stark white background. You know, what's going on? Why are these two kind of... Is this something that happens in the issue? You're wondering at the start. This pose doesn't happen per se, but they do kind of, you know, team up, obviously. Nice cover. And then the B cover, which is Ron Wagner, which after Larry Hama pencils. I've got the small indent here. It looks to me like the Terminator dude is standing over a desk with Storm Shadow, with Snake Eyes kind of cowering underneath.
Cyberdyne Systems Model 101.
Yeah, all ready to strike, maybe not cowering. But yeah, I think I prefer the Gallant one.
Yeah. It's clean, it's nice. I mean, it throws two very opposite end of the spectrum characters together. It's like, yeah, okay, I want to read this because I want to see Snake Eyes team up with the Baroness. The other one is kind of very much more pertaining to the issue. Is it interesting that they've placed a computer monitor on the desk, and on that monitor you've got Storm Shadow, and it's like it's a modesty move. I mean, it's covering up the robot's crotch. So the robot's like low crouching over this desk, and this monitor's smack bang in his abdomen. It's like, whoa, we don't want you to see what's going on there, man.
That's it. These are more human than you thought. Yeah. Listen, 176.
There's an interesting touch that's missing. Yeah, in the Hama pencils, there's an added detail saying "Intruder Alert, Camera 3" next to Storm Shadow's image on the monitor.
Yeah.
That gets lost in Ron Wagner's artwork. So you all of a sudden, it's more ambiguous as to what Storm Shadow's role is in this. Is he the aggressor? Is he also trying to find Snake Eyes? Like,
I think that was needed. That text was needed because, like you say, in the cover here, I think you've got Storm Shadow on the monitor, but there's no reference point to it. There's no context for why he's on that monitor.
He just looks badass. I mean, he's got the mean slant eyes. Like,
that's it.
I'm going to get you too, Snake Eyes.
Yeah. 176, I've got the A cover again, Gallant and Erskine. This is 3 kind of horizontal panels with Snake Eyes, Baroness, and Cobra Commander. And they've all got, what is it? Il Buono, La Cattiva, and Il Bruto. So
any points for guessing what the reference is there?
What's the translation? I don't know. Il Bruto must be brute, surely.
It's the ugly.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. Of course it is. Ding, ding, of course it is. Yeah, that's quality. I love that cover. That's brilliant.
Yeah, the Spanish translation of the title would be Il Buono, Il Bruto, Il Cattivo. So they switch ugly and bad in the Spanish translation. But yes, on this cover as it stands, it's the good, the bad, the ugly.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's quality.
And, I mean, why?
Yeah, the question is why. What reference does that have to this issue? None. It's more references to the characters, isn't it? But
Blondie, you know what you are. Just a dirty son of a...
I've not seen that in ages.
More homework, no less.
Oh, jeepers. Yes, you're right. Does it hold up? Is it worth a go?
I'll tell you, I saw the extended cut a couple of years ago, and I thought to myself, this is up there with Empire as one of those movies that I wish I could watch fresh as an adult, having no knowledge of how it ends up. Because the interplay between the three and the kind of the trust game that operates and the sort of side deals that they strike with one another keep it very, very intriguing. So if you can come at it fresh, and you say you haven't seen it in years.
Haven't seen it for years, so yes, it will be fresh enough, I think, for me, yeah.
It absolutely holds up. Jeez, I think top 10 for me.
Wow, and what's the crack with the others? Is it part of a trilogy, Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more?
Well, the theory, I think, is that Clint's character is the same man.
Okay. But it's not actually verbally referenced to being the same person.
Yeah, I mean, Lee Van Cleef is a carryover, but he's obviously not the same character.
Right, okay. So maybe I'll just go straight to Good, the Bad and the Ugly.
Yeah.
All right, I'm doing it. That's easier it's easier to do that as homework than design a board game, so I'll do that.
Fair enough. Well, you can do both, leave it on the background. I mean, I'm always curious to know, when you do these kind of film marathons for Letterboxd, are you devoting your time entirely to watching the film, or are you kind of a little bit distracted? You're kind of, I got to crush this movie, but let me also paint a figure and dole out some homework to the, the kid at the same time.
That's a good and fair question. Now, Ben asked me that similarly on the Out of Timers on one of the previous episodes, because we were crunching through the numbers rapidly, and up to this point it has been, I've put the movie on, whether it be on my laptop, my tablet or the TV. Obviously if the missus is watching the TV, then I'm going to watch a movie through other means, so it might be on my laptop or my tablet, but no, my focus has been on the
mobile
movie.
Phone. Haven't
resorted to that yet.
Yes, you have. Blade Runner.
No, Ben said it was on my phone, but it was on my tablet.
Oh, very good.
Yes, but you're right.
Anyways, the burden of knowledge. Chief, we're talking about covers here, man. Let's
listen.
Let's continue.
Cover B. But you're right. At some point, am I going to be so ground down to just churning out numbers that I'm going to do it whilst I'm painting a mini? I hope not. But only time will tell. Anyway, cover B. Larry Hama pencils. Herb Trimpe does the finishes, and this looks, again, I've got the small one, but it looks like it's a nice cover.
Oh, it's terrific. Yeah. More of this, please.
Yeah.
Though I can't identify the weapon that these guys are using. The Vipers seem to be using a ray gun. So it's spitting out a green, I don't know, vapor trail.
Oh, yeah, at the bottom. Yeah, I see it now, yeah.
Or maybe that's how, a suppressed weapon discharges. It kind of puffs this kind of weird phosphorescent green smoke.
Colours look nice. This is colours by, I'm going to call out Romulo Ferrado Jr., because I'm not familiar with the name, but he looks like he's done a great job here.
Yeah. I love this cover. Good old Cobra transport helicopters in the background. I'm always a fan.
Yep. Back to the issues. Now, you mentioned that we find out a lot of deets through these two issues combined, and we actually get the first, I think, bit of pertinent information on page 2 of the first issue here, because one of the guards, and this is, I kind of like this trope of actions going on and the characters aren't talking to explain their actions. You've got people watching this on the monitor screens and they're doing the exposition for you. These two guards interplay. I think it works really well here, especially when you've got a character like Snake Eyes who is not going to be talking anyway, so you don't want to consistently have Storm Shadow explaining Snake Eyes' actions. But one of the guards on the second page actually says there's not a lot of reasons for a Cobalt Chimera or Chimera. I don't know what your preferred pronunciation is there.
I would go Chimera. I don't know, but that's only because of Mission Impossible 2. Eek.
Yeah. We'll say
that's
Chimera.
Not the best cultural touchstone.
But yeah, so he calls it a Cobalt Chimera, which we had previously been saying was kind of a Cyberdyne 101 Terminator model. But so now they've been name checked, so we kind of know what they've been building here, and I think we get another reference later on in this issue for, is it called a BN001? For the thing with 6
in reference
arms.
to, the thing that's pulling the strings, BN001. What does the BN stand for? At this stage it's not clear, but I certainly hope
it isn't. Now I get it. Blue Ninja.
I
finally got
really?
it. Yeah.
Really?
I didn't get it.
I don't think we can no prize our way out of that one. I mean, if that's really Larry's shorthand to remembering what it's like, it's the first one, it's the ruler, it's the Queen Bee, and we're going to call it BN001. It's so the serial number stuck before the actual uniform was adopted. Eek.
Listen, I've just sent you a couple of pictures because when I was reading this issue, I was like, this thing reminds me a little bit of an Iron Man bad guy called Ghost. Now, it's not exactly the same, but when you look at those images I just sent you, I think it's kind of a bit similar-ish in look to this character who was, very techie and used...
Is Ghost sort of a post-Metal Gear Solid design?
Oh yeah, he looks a bit like, of course, Psycho Mantis as well. Yeah?
Yeah,
Or not?
man. I think so, yeah, definitely. The skin-tight suit, the very kind of pigeon-toed stance, the gangly long arms, and obviously the mask, which looks like a breathing apparatus.
Now, there might have been a redesign because I think the character has been around for a long time, predating Metal Gear, but this design that I've just sent you and I'll post up on the socials, I think that design probably was post-Metal Gear, so yeah, very interesting.
Why? I couldn't read your mind.
Love it.
Good stuff.
There's a really good bit of dialogue on that second page where they've called out this Cobalt Chimera, and one of the guards says, okay, fine, he's looking for someone, there's someone sneaking around in there, and he says, definitely below a level 3, we're talking an 80% meat entity.
Oh, Chief, that line sends me chills, man. This is some body horror stuff.
Yeah.
This entire cult of people who give up their fleshy parts to kind of transcend. Well, firstly, they're like the Bomar monks in Jabba's palace. I don't know if
Yeah.
Spider guys. But, I was just listening to an episode of Retronauts, another podcast. In fact, Ben put me onto them way back. And they were doing an episode on RoboCop and just exactly how horrific it must be to wake up to having all your meat stripped away and just be a consciousness and a face plastered onto a metal chassis. But these guys they are devotees. They're wanting this.
That's it.
They're like, please take me to the next level.
Yeah, it's creepy stuff, and just the line to me had that kind of element of comedy, but then as soon as you read the line, it kind of then veers, like you said, into wait a minute, this is now a bit creepy. So
these guys are sitting in their shitty security job in their van, which is also odd to me. Like, why are they not security guards inside the building? Why are they outside in a van like a pair of undercover cops? Anyway, they are sitting there like dreaming night and day about when they're going to basically get their pay raise and go up a level and lose another bit of their humanity. Like, this is some sick stuff.
Yeah. I'm not sure how they knew when the ninjas started attacking this thing. He calls out, "What is that? It's a ninja throwing star." So I'm not sure how these guys had specific knowledge of ninja weapons or were able to determine that was a ninja throwing star. But anyway, that's
even
fine.
Before that, they're like, the only thing that could have snuck in had to be something with ninja skill, because like we're reading more than 80% meat. So these guys have to be like really highly trained. I mean, for security guards, these guys, they know some stuff.
Yeah.
I do like the trope of them narrating this thing, because I think all too often in these ninja battles, the guys are like jawing away while doing combat, and it's like it strains believability a bit. I mean, I get that Larry has to earn his paycheck, so there have to be some words on the page. But, I'd rather the combatants be mute and kind of engaged in combat. And as you see here, a third party is kind of talking us through it. It's very amusing because they're, of course, like half of the time they're thinking, guys, let's not call this in because, it's probably nothing and we don't want to alarm the higher-ups. They'll take it out on us. And then the other guy's more neurotic. He's like, no, we should call this in.
Yeah. And it works so well because they're not just explaining stuff in layman's terms. They're actually using, kind of a bit of techie dialogue and stuff as well. So you kind of get a bit more feel for the severity of what's going on and the level of technological advancements that this company has made. And so kind of talking about that technological advancements, when you first see this BN-001 and he's kind of holed up in his encampment and he's got these 4 arms, which is kind of spooky, and then he pulls up this 3D kind of hologram mapping of the area, and those scenes look really cool. He's kind of hunched over, with his arms kind of in the reaching over to the holographic image. It's just really well done, really really top stuff by Gallant here.
I'm interested, Chief, because obviously, like, the sex of BN-001 is immaterial. It's a robot.
Yeah.
But you say he. I mean, I thought of it more as a kind of a matriarch. I was like, it's a she. I wonder
Right.
where I got that impression.
Okay, so
maybe it just existed in my head, and nothing
almost
really
like
suggested
almost
it.
like the hive mind, almost kind of like you mentioned earlier, the queen bee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I could be way off, but for some reason I always imagined it having a kind of a more feminine persona.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
I don't know where I'm getting that from. Pulling it out my ass.
I'll tell you another thing that's kind of changed in these issues. When we saw Cobra Commander previously, he was mourning Billy, and now he's going back to that very authoritative, brutal Cobra Commander almost. He wants revenge for Billy's death. He's traced some leads to the dojo, and he is effectively trying to assassinate the Master Moscovina because he's shot her in the head. Obviously, it reveals, we know that she's got this, whatever percentage of her is now robotic, but he's effectively trying to execute her. And then off they that was in Jersey, wasn't it? And off they fly to, try and trace down new leads. But Cobra Commander's on a tear here.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I mean it's hardcore. Like, he's pulled a gun on one of Moscovina's students.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't care if you don't fear death, but, we can do this one of two ways. You can either just give me the information I need and, we keep the bloodshed to a minimum, or I'm going to start killing your disciples.
Yeah, he puts a gat up in Mindbender's face in the next issue as well. Has him up against the wall, gun in his face. It's about to splatter his brains over the wall there as well.
About bloody time, man. Gee whiz, Mindbender hasn't had a successful scheme in how many issues?
Yeah.
Damn.
Right. I'll tell you another nice touch I like is when Scarlet comes back to the pit, and they didn't really need to show her re-entering the pit, and there's a page and a half of that. But one of the things I like is where she encounters Spirit, who is the guard dog, if you will, on the rug in the Quonset hut, and he says, I spotted the dust plume from your tyres a mile out. And she's like, you could see the dust at night? And he says, occultation of the stars low on the horizon. Stealthiest approach is with the mountain range at your back. And she's like, I'll remember that.
Yeah, well, the next time I need to sneak up on the pit. It's like,
Yeah.
why is Scarlet trying to sneak up on spirits?
Yeah.
Surely
And-
the idea is to be identified early on so that, you don't get a very warm welcome.
That's it. And a very small touch here that didn't go unnoticed by me and wasn't necessary, but I really liked it, was she does a bit of name dropping. So she's like, someone saying hi, and she's, oh, hi Clutch, how's it going, Snowjob? And then she references, hey, Leatherneck, and then Leatherneck mentions Dusty, Mainframe and Stalker. So you get these Joes who we maybe haven't seen in a while, Clutch and Leatherneck and Snowjob, and they're just, she's walking through the pit and she's kind of saying hi to them, and that wasn't necessary, and it wasn't done in a forced way. It just felt nice to kind of see and be made aware that these Joes that we haven't seen in a while are still around.
Well, this is a team book, but we're spending a lot of time doing the Snake Eyes Storm Shadow soap opera routine.
Yeah.
Larry was going to play to his favorites, but you're absolutely right. He didn't have to, but the name dropping is great. And Gallant definitely delivers in terms of just populating the pit. Even at this late hour, there are guys working. You can see a lot of vehicle action in the background. It's great. Yeah, really, really nice.
I like the fact as well that when Cobra Commander and his transport chopper make it to the next venue, which is, I guess, where Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow have been, and they find it's now emptied, the Vipers seem to be not stooges or anything, but they actually seem to be doing a good job in terms of professionalism and, clearing rooms out and checking all the drives, and they don't seem to be patsies that they maybe have been made out to be in the past.
Yeah. And further to that, the revelation that comes later, that it seems the Blue Ninjas are infiltrating Broker Beach.
Yes.
And murdering Viper's families.
Yeah,
that really hits home too.
Yeah, man.
That's giving a lot of personality and three-dimensionality to, like, the bullet stoppers of the Cobra Legions.
Yeah, you get that first twist, which, again, I didn't see these coming, was that they discover that the CGs have been on the production line, that they've actually been manufacturing Fred series kind of facelifts for these. So now you're like, holy ball sacks, we've got, potential infiltrators within the ranks of Cobra. Then later on, you find out that they've actually maybe Vipers as well.
What is the Blue Ninja endgame?
Yeah, there you go.
Because at first it was, they're introduced to us as guys just after wiping out acolytes of the ARAH. And now it seems like their master plan is to overtake Cobra.
Yeah.
So is it just a general power struggle, or is there something else to it? I guess we're not going to learn that in these 2 issues, but it seems like we've switched tracks. Like, Blue Ninjas are definitely after the Hooded Serpent followers.
Yeah,
Something
definitely.
we skipped over, though, bro.
Do it.
What's Baroness doing? We're at Castle Destro, and a Hurricane VTOL is being fueled up.
That looks
We
wicked.
get some great cameos from the Iron Grenadiers. I like seeing them in uniform as opposed to just general kilted security men.
Yep. So
Looking
she
regal.
is, Destro's kind of quizzing her about Billy, and she's saying he means nothing to me. She's gone in the hurricane, and he's gone back to his wardrobe, pressed the secret button to reveal the weapons cache, and some of them shooters are gone missing.
Oof, I think that's my favourite page of issue 175.
Yeah? The realisation
It's-
of Destro.
There are no word bubbles. It's all visual storytelling. The Hurricane is just dusted off, and he walks past his Iron Grenadier entourage, goes into, I think it's Baroness's chambers, or maybe they have shared chambers.
Yeah.
Sees, hilariously, a whole bunch of like leather Baroness corsets
Yep.
strewn all over the bed. Goes into the wardrobe, clicks the switch, and the bog standard like weapons rack, but with looks like a pistol's missing, 3 magazines are missing, was it an MP5? Some kind of submachine gun's missing. Yeah, man. And
Like
then the sort of ponderous last face of Destro,
Like we
gonna
saw,
do some damage.
I think you've hit it on the head there. This is wordless panels, and they're quite emotive and pack a punch. And we saw that in the previous issue where Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes deliver Billy's dead body to Cobra Commander, and you get that whole page where he gets out of bed and he's on his knees, and that's wordless as well, and it has the same, different emotions, but the way that Gallant can draw that out from a page without the words is really top draw storytelling.
Absolutely, man. One other oddity with 175, before we go on.
Yeah.
When the Vipers arrive at the Revanche labs, and they're kind of searching through it, they make note of the fact that... Oh, wait, this isn't the next issue.
Are you talking
Anyways,
about
I
the
might as
worker?
well continue.
Yeah, go on.
They make note of the fact that there's a really low ceiling in one of the rooms.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the other Viper's like, well, this is where the children worked. It's
Yeah.
a throwaway line, but...
Yeah, but it's a bit like... Well, I read it and I was like, is that actually what it says it is? Is he like... Are we talking about child slavery here? And it was just like, wow, this is... Yeah, this is a horror comic, I think.
Because they don't touch on it ever again. It's
No.
literally a throwaway line. Do they
Yeah.
mean it?
Was he joking or not? I don't know.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Dark stuff. Dark times.
That's it. I'll tell you
Bunch
another
of
thing.
American street urchins pulled off the mean streets of Jersey.
Yeah. Oh, then we get a couple of pages later. This is the scene where, on this assembly line, one of the Televipers says, one of the computer monitors is still on. Holy! They've all been given the face of a Fred series Crimson Guardsman. And that's where you first think, okay, we're in trouble here. We've got infiltrators. And, yeah, there's more to come from that. Now, a couple of pages on, really nice touch here where we're in Highland Park, New Jersey. We've got Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, and a mashed up Boris in the back of the car because he's not fed too well when he came across that Cobalt Chimera. And we see some vans that have been emptied out. And on the side, it's got the Brocker Beach Community Service Committee. And this design of the badge is so good. It's effectively a heart, but the heart is in the shape of the Cobra sigil, with the kind of arteries coming out the top being little kind of people. It's so good. I love it.
A minge.
Yeah.
Lady Garden. Yeah, man.
But
Snake lips.
I like that design. That's nice.
That is cool. Yeah.
Again, it's a horror scene here because they go in and there are just ragdoll bodies all over the shop here.
Something went down. big time.
Yeah.
Of course, their first instinct is that these guys were out to kill Dr. Chen and somehow got intercepted. So the danger is high, the stakes are high. You're crawling through a house filled with bodies. And this kind of comes back to these horror elements. It's like, yeah, man, these are the two kind of issues that you definitely do want to read or don't want to read, perhaps, if you have a sensitivity to that thing. Alone in the house at night.
Yeah. The guys have been sent here because of a communique from Scarlet. She sent a text message to Snake Eyes basically saying this Dr. Shen with some Finnish institute has been working on some of the... Well, I don't know. I can't be bothered to find that little message.
The monofilament weapons.
That's it. You got it.
Her claim to fame. And then shortly after that, she disappeared. So the implication is that she's
a target. Yeah.
Inducted into this cult.
Yes.
The Blue Ninja cult.
Or she was a target and she's tried to escape from their clutches. I don't know.
Right.
But I did not see the next twist coming. Even though I've read this issue again, I've forgotten it. But she goes out the house and, Dr. Boris is there. Dr. Shen, are you all right? We've come to... And she's vaded him. She's vaded him round the neck, snapped his neck, and then her head turns round and it's all kinds of freaky-deaky going on here.
I am fine. Everything is just hunky-dory.
This is
man.
Proper
Matrix vibes.
That's it. This
Badass.
Is brutal, and it doesn't get much better because the next page, in Brocker Beach, someone answers the door, and it's a Fred series, and we know who the Freds potentially are right now because we've seen that robotics lab and the Televiper communique, and he's come in. Cobra Commando's issued an alert. I'm here to see that you comply. Where is your husband? He's on duty at the Wax Museum. Next panel, it's just a silhouette of this guy's eyes glowing, and it is, whoa, you are dead meat, lady.
Nothing says evil robot more than glowing red eyes.
Yeah, you bet.
Damn.
This is, I love these issues, man. It's just, I think the first time I read these, as they were coming out, I was very much in the camp of this Blue Ninja hoodoo mumbo jumbo nonsense is not my G.I. Joe, and I was very much not on board. And I don't know why I'm seeing it in a different light now, but I've done a complete 180 on it, and I really, really was digging these issues.
At the cost of sounding corny or trite, I think I'm exactly the same. I think the way the Blue Ninjas are presented at this point is exciting and freaky. We needed a third party to switch things up because the war between Joe and Cobra, as I said last episode, it's totally stalemated.
Yeah.
Like nothing seems to have worked. Nothing Cobra has plotted has ever unhinged the Joes or destroyed their organization. And the Joes seemingly can never completely wipe out Cobra. They just continue to thrive. This global terrorist organization, and we've never gotten a breakthrough. So Revenge Electronics or Blue Ninjas, this stuff is necessary, and fortunately, they're fresh enough as antagonists at this stage to be interesting.
Now, I'm not saying that is going to continue because I don't know well enough where it's going to go, and maybe it does fall off a cliff. And I do go back to the old way of thinking. Okay, this first bit was good, but then they pushed it too far. But I'm on for the ride at this point in time. So let's see what happens. I'll tell you what is happening in this comic, and this Dr. Shen has gone proper full exorcist now, crawling on the ceiling, head turning, neck extending in one scene. My brain is still human, fools, and she's got shooting stuff out of her hands. It's,
Then mouth, my goodness.
The mouth, yeah, she's got it going on, not in a good way. But this, some good fight scene action here. In the end, they do take her down, but it's not Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. It's actually the Baroness, who has a quality line on her entrance. High velocity, jacketed, depleted uranium core boat tails transfer an impressive amount of kinetic energy on impact, don't they? That's a Roger Moore line from Bond. Love it. Yeah.
Bond, I need you.
So does England. But so this is the scene that was actually it was the wrong issue, wasn't it? This is the scene that was referenced on the cover of 175 happening in 176.
Mm-hmm.
And
time for an epic team up.
That's it. And then
behind
also
enemy lines.
Then also
Baroness and Snake Eyes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. You get that final kind of Harmer, not wrap up page, but a lot of stuff's happening on the last page because back in the pit, Scarlet is concerned about what's going on. they've had orders not to start, or no authorization to start their own op, and then all of a sudden, all three of them, one after the other, say, "Wait a minute, I've got some leave coming up. Scarlet, Duke, and Stalker. I'm going on leave as well. So am I." And then, I'm jazzed.
And Mainframe, of course, sheepishly is just sitting in the back there. He's like, no.
I'll stay here.
I think I'm going to keep... Yeah, I'm going to stay at the desk, thanks.
I'm going to stay here and play Pac-Man. Yeah. Yeah. So
Excellent.
this was, for me, a good time had. And, I was sailed through these issues champing at the bit. So this is, I think, definitely my favourite of the run, of the IDW run so far. I'm actually going to give this an 8.
Oh my goodness, high praise indeed. I liked it. I really did. I loved the horror elements, as I said before. But in my mind, Chief, I think I'm like you in that I need to rate things relative to other things.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if I'm rating this out of all the issues that have come before, including the classic ARAH run,
Yep.
It's difficult to crawl out from under the shadow of issues that I would have given 10s to.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So being relative, I'm going to be quite a moderate marker and give this a 6.5.
6.5 Yo-Joage from the S-Jubb 7. I am going to very quickly look this up. I've got the Every Joe Story Ever spreadsheet, which I think previously I used to say, I'll put this up, to share it. I don't know if I ever did. So I will do that.
I'll do a quick
I will
in memoriam
share.
for Boris.
Yeah.
Boris, the Russian master who gets unceremoniously slaughtered by the villainous robot Dr. Chen.
Yeah.
Dude, isn't it slightly comical that Storm Shadow's like, no, we got to get you to a doctor. You got a fractured skull and your ribs are cracked. And then this text comes through from Scarlet saying, Dr. Chen might be involved.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys head over there? And I don't think these distances are necessarily next door to one another. They were on the road for a while.
That's it.
And the whole time I'm thinking, this is like a scene from Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Larry, I'm real scared, man. Larry, please, just drop me off, man. Just drop me off. That
was good.
Playing in
That
my
was
mind.
good.
I'm like, damn, this poor guy. He's taken a beating, but now they're putting him they sort of prop him up and just sit behind the wheel. If Dr. Chen comes, tell her not to worry. We got this covered.
This guy's not looking after anyone.
Shame.
Listen, I found the spreadsheet. I gave 35 story arcs an 8 or higher from the original run. So,
Do you feel you might need to moderate that a bit?
You think?
Or is that legit?
well, here you go. So my number one was issues 45 to 48. I gave it
Actually,
10.
I take that back. Chief, you've said on record before that this is one of your all-time favorite comic book runs. It's
Yeah.
up there with 2000 AD. So, I think it's perfectly acceptable to have 40 plus in the 8 category.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
I mean, let's just look. I think there are about 110 entries on the list so far, which cover all the way up to. I don't think I've put our recent ones on there, but I'll do that. But anyway, next week, I think what I'll say is try and source out the 2012 Real American Hero Annual, and maybe I think it's double size, so that might be enough to cover next week's episode. But just in case it's not, everyone read 177 as well, just in case. So we might do the annual and 177, or we might just do the annual, but to be safe, read both. Is that fair?
Sounds good. Oh, yeah.
Cool. Now listen, we've talked about the comics, and we didn't talk much about toys within the comic, but now it's fortunate that you're here because you can talk toys, because it's time for
Steve talks about
Steve Talks Toys.
Ho, ho. Steve talks about G.I. Joe. He talks about all the toys from the comic book and the animated show. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys. Steve talks about toys.
Give me the plastic, baby. He's armed with an Uzi and a sword, and he dresses in black. It's the Iron Grenadiers, version 1. Down the garden path, huh?
Yeah.
They have a cameo in this issue, so I'm jumping on the opportunity to talk about them because I don't think the opportunity will necessarily present itself again. We see some Iron Grenadiers dotted around Castle Destro, and these guys are hella stylish.
Yep.
They come at a kind of a weird time in the line when a lot of the classic fans were getting out. The cartoon had stopped, so there wasn't as much media exposure for these guys. But anyone who's stuck with Joe knows their value and that they are beautiful action figures. Let's, as per usual, jump into the file card to just set the tone. Codename Iron Grenadiers, Destro's elite troopers. Specialties, terrorism, sales, marketing development. Very dangerous. The Iron Grenadiers are handpicked from Destro's personal bodyguards. They are the spearhead of Destro's incursions into new territory. The Iron Grenadiers, acting as agents, provocateurs, saboteurs, or outright terrorists, impel an unsuspecting country towards chaos and turmoil, thereby creating new markets for Destro's weapons where none existed before. Their pay is a percentage of gross sales. So I guess they are commissioned workers?
Yeah.
Very good. They'll probably be pretty fanatical about getting those bonuses. Imagine the slickest used car salesman you've ever met. Now imagine that he's also the trickiest accountant in the world. Got that? Try to picture what he would be like if that same guy was also a highly trained commando with expertise in explosives, small arms, and hand-to-hand combat. Top it off with the fact that no other mercenary group in the world wants them because of their history of turning on their superiors. That's what an Iron Grenadier is. Now, I think I've managed to discover an unedited form of Larry Hama's file card for this.
Really?
Because it appeared, there is a much more fully written out version of this file card in an intelligence profile that you would find in the 1991 G.I. Joe The Action Force Annual. Might you have the annual from 1991? It's the UK annual.
Yeah,
I
can probably go and fish that out, actually, yeah.
Well, it's got the Tiger Force vehicles kind of rampaging on the cover. I'm not going to read it out because it is a mouthful, but the tidbit of information that really jumped out at me is the fact that Destro headhunts his Iron Grenadiers from the mercenary groups of the world, but also from within Cobra as well.
Right, yeah, that's interesting.
So he buys out Cobra personnel and adds them to his Iron Grenadiers legions. He's like, I like your style. And slaps a black uniform on them. It's fantastic bit of texture, that. And it really does speak to the kind of the wheeler-dealer nature of Destro and his, he's got no scruples when it comes to sourcing his manpower. He'll take the best guys. He'll take them straight out of Cobra Commander's clutches.
Yeah, you know.
So it makes me think that these guys are sort of even more elite than the Crimson Guardsmen. They're more hand-picked and more specialized and more fanatical and more greedy, which is weird because then you contrast their comic book use and they seem to be like Destro's rank and file. I mean, in your favorite arc, the invasion of Cobra Island, the Cobra Civil War, they seem to be like the standard infantry troop of Destro's legions.
Yeah.
Probably because there isn't another action figure at the time. It'd be a full year before we got more forces for Destro, and ironically, the next sort of rank and file troop we get is an even more elite trooper called the Annihilator.
Yep.
I always thought it should be the other way around. The Annihilator, this kind of orange-suited helipack trooper, should be the more, like, cheap, low-rent...
Generic,
generic troop, and like the Iron Grenadier with his beautiful black stylings and other elements, which we'll touch on in a moment, just make him look far more ceremonial and elite, and definitely the kind of the Destro equivalent of the Crimson Guard.
They look great flanking Destro, don't they, on either side? It's just a great look.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are elements of Vader in that helmet, but also elements of, like, I think 18th century, like, European battle helmets or fire department helmets. It's kind of a ridged helmet with a peak, but it's also got a Fritz-style bucket around the back for protection of the sort of the back of the head and the neck.
Yep.
Difficult to place exactly what its origins are, but it's definitely in that late 18th, early 19th, even into the 20th century, these helmets, you'd see them.
Yeah.
They come armed with a saber.
Oh, yeah,
like
boy.
A cavalry saber. Oh, it's incredible, man. What a nice touch. It's not the first time we've seen sabers in the G.I. Joe line. I think the first accolade was Gung Ho's ceremonial dress blues. But this guy straddles the line between like a frontline troop and some kind of honor guard. And the option that you get in having his weapons loadout of an Uzi submachine gun, a saber, and some wicked red Flash Gordon ray gun, essentially, is that you can kind of outfit him for different scenarios. And he works sublimely in all of them. Gold accents and red, the sort of black, red, and gold color palette just is sublime. It's really, really, really sweet. And the Uzi itself is not the classic Snake Eyes Uzi, which we see having use with Steeler, with Snake Eyes version 1 and 2. This is beefed up. It is definitely a far more mongrel-looking weapon.
Yeah. It's got it's got a hilt, has it? It's got a stock.
Yeah.
A stock.
Stock and a barrel extension. It's overall weightier, heavier, more substantial. It is a bit of a thumb breaker, I must say, because if you're going to tuck the stock behind the Iron Grenadier's forearm, you are in risk of stretching, if not stressing, the thumbs on the classic figures.
Interesting.
But the juice is worth the squeeze, Chief, because once you get it in there, man, once you've kind of acclimatized the thumb to that thing, it's sweet as all hell. These guys look incredible holding their included weapons. The ray gun, I'm less mad about. But it's nice, once again, to have the option, because if he is kind of in ceremonial mode, he's not going to be walking around with a Uzi.
No.
He's got a close quarters personal weapon, and Destro loves his pistols. He came equipped with an incredible handgun, and I guess this is just 1988's update to that.
Yeah.
It's got a weird, like, flat top. Do you have eyes on this figure or this accessory at the moment?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, man. So it's got a sort of very angular, triangular barrel extension and a flat top, all very inexplicable kind of sci-fi details. Very B-grade science fiction schlock film tropes, I guess. But it's a striking weapon. The saber itself, not functional as a sword. Okay, let me just put that out there. It's in its scabbard and it's not coming out. We would have to flip forward to the 25th anniversary before we could actually have a weapon that could be unsheathed. But I like the fineness of the detail in the classic. It's not meant to be used as a weapon. This is very much for show. This is very much for these guys on parade. And that works, man.
Yeah.
You line up an honor guard of Iron Grenadiers, and it is a sight to behold. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about later versions. Because while these guys look very much like a very special, high-ranking version of the Iron Grenadier, we eventually got, in, I think, 2012...
Yep.
Let me send you a picture while I'm at it.
Do it. When did this come out in relation to the Destro version with the gold trim Destro?
Same year.
Right.
This was definitely designed as the kind of 1-2 punch.
Right, okay.
Yeah, man.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it fits the aesthetic a lot better than stuff that came later. They got a bit crazy with the color palette, unfortunately. But the purity of the line in 88 was sublime. These guys definitely looked the part.
Now, this image you've sent me, I've not seen this before, but this image reminds me of some kind of, World War II Nazi stormtrooper kind of figure. I don't know.
It's perhaps because the helmet is done up in grey. Listeners, I am referring, if you have yojo.com to hand, the Iron Grenadier version 8 from series 27, released in 2011. This is hailed by many as one of the most successful updates of all time.
Wow.
It's given us an Iron Grenadier, but armed him heavily, given him a lot more secondaries, armor portions for his legs, for his upper body, for his shoulders, and given him what, I'm surprised it didn't jump out at you immediately, Chief, what effectively is the smart gun from Aliens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, You're right.
Sort of foregrip off to the side, a rear grip that's kind of like flat face with the weapon itself, and a kind of ammo feed that goes into a backpack full of bullets. The other sort of cultural touchstone for this, and I'm going to name drop Jim Godfrey, the guy who put me onto this podcast in the first place. He says these guys look a lot like Warhammer 40k.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's a good
Big
shout.
time. The kind of chunky, almost like they should be weighed down by their own equipment, but to hell with that. I mean, it looks cool, so why not? The reason I mention it, apart from it just being super cool, is this is definitely the Iron Grenadiers' all business. These guys are frontline troops. They are not meant to be on any honor guard. They're not meant to be carrying any sabers, any cavalry weapons. These guys mean business. They mean to overthrow small nations.
Yeah,
Literally.
definitely. Quick sidebar, Jim was giving me a bit of advice on painting the figures as well, so about highlighting and stuff, extra highlighting for the small figures. So yeah, I can see his Warhammer 40k background, but it definitely does look a little bit like a Adeptus Astartes. I think that's what they call the Space Marines. But yeah, this figure, I like this figure. I like this update. I'm way out of touch with any kind of action figures post the early 90s. So getting the glimpses of this stuff is very, very interesting to me.
Did you have any brushings with the classic Iron Grenadier, Chief?
I've just sent you a picture, my man.
My man!
Do you not
Jeez,
see
I
it?
need to shut up and look at my WhatsApps.
That's it.
I've just sent you a picture of another version of the Iron Grenadier.
You have, yeah.
Why don't you talk about him?
This guy has got like a kind of, again, it's a bit of a Nazi vibe to this one. He's got kind of a big kind of trench coat, gold trimmed, yeah, with kind of a bulky kind of belt packs. I don't know. I'm not sure if I like this design.
Well, it kind of is touching on that very European greatcoat,
Yes.
World War One era. In the First World War, it was one of those weird times in history when you had machine guns and still mounted cavalry.
Yeah.
Like there were throwbacks and throw forwards in technology. There was an air force, and yet people were wearing medieval chainmail armor. It's fascinating to see images of like equipment and weapons and personnel from that era. So like, I think that was what the toy designers were touching on when they put the Iron Grenadiers in this greatcoat. And of course, it's Scotland and it's hella cold up there in the Highlands.
Yeah, true. Did you see my
But this
picture? My picture.
I
of
saw your picture, Chief.
So his
Man,
thumb.
hats off to you, mate.
His thumb is intact. He's holding that Uzi, and there is nothing wrong with that thumb. So I've obviously
Bravo,
wedged
man.
it in
I
there.
applaud your boldness. Has he been posed like that for the past 30 years?
Well, I've just pulled him out of a box. Yeah, so quite likely, yes.
Yeah, man. Well, testimony to that 30-year-old plastic. It's still good, brother.
That's it.
They built these toys to last.
Yeah, Iron Grenadiers. Great figures overall. I think that was a great addition to not only the plastics and the toy line, but they did their bit in the comics. Maybe not to the extent that we would have liked, but definitely had a presence about them in the comics, which is good.
Are you in agreement with them being regarded as this legion? Because there has been a kind of a backscaling of them. Like, they started off as like, there's enough guys in the Iron Grenadier Corps to effectively invade Cobra Island.
Yeah.
And hold that. They've quickly cooled off that. I mean, it's regarded as Destro's kind of private mercenary group now.
Yeah, was it maybe at the time that they were, could it be explained away that they were considered so much more elite and they'd gone through so much more training than the crappy Vipers that they didn't need to be as big a force? I mean, I don't know what a legion comprises in terms of numbers, or is supposed to in military parlance, but yeah.
Dude, it looked like Normandy and D-Day on the sort of D-Day landings in that issue.
It did, yeah.
Like
yeah.
there were a lot of guys and a lot of Destro's sort of premier tank of the time, the Demon.
Yeah, that's quality. And that kind of force hadn't been hinted at from Destro before. He was this arms dealer who there was no mention of him having this, private army, but it is what it is.
It's also possible that his Iron Grenadier Corps were a core group of highly fanaticized, specialized, like guys that were cross-trained in, as the file card suggests, like all these commando tactics, sabotage, but also subversion and accountancy. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's another Larry Harmer trope. these kind of mundane specialties to go with these super elite troopers. But being Destro, he kind of outsourced and like just brought on a bunch of guys with guns, put them in Iron Grenadier outfits to just swell his forces for the invasion.
Yeah.
And then backscaled shortly thereafter. I mean, it's very much in keeping with his mercenary background to like just get hired guns, basically. Let's put together an invasion force in a jiffy.
Yeah.
Because it did seem to come out of nowhere. Like, boom. All of a sudden, Destro's got a sizable army, on a par with Cobra.
Yeah, that's right. And like you said, scaled back over the years, but the figure and the character still remains very iconic, I think, even though it was obviously introduced later in the run, but a great look and a great figure nonetheless.
Nice.
Listen, educated as always, that's me. You are the educator, which is fantastic. There'll be more toy talk next week, but right now we've got to confuse some people because it's time for Commonwealth colloquialisms, aka over egging the pudding. We got a pudding, we're gonna over egg that pudding. Ain't got no criticisms. We got some Commonwealth colloquialisms. Who is going first this week?
Well, let's bookend you, I guess. Unless you want to go last, Chief. But once again, I've got an Aussie and a South African.
Yeah, do it.
I tend to mix it up while I'm here. It's disgusting. I mean, I've lost my sense of self. Who am I? But once again, I love to make you guess. If I was to say the word ranger, what is that in reference to?
Right, now what is this? This is the South African or the Australian?
Wouldn't that be an unfair hint? This will be the Australian. Ranger, mate.
Ranger.
That's how I'm going to do it. That's my cheap shorthand to tipping you off. I'm going to put mate at the end.
Right, okay.
And then for the South African one, I'll say brew.
That's it. Good. Ranger. Ranger. Nope, don't know. Put me out of my misery.
So Kim and I were watching this show about dog grooming.
Of course.
Which was presented by Aussie's very favourite host of the week, Rebel Wilson.
Okay, yes.
And she was discussing Ed Sheeran. Does that perhaps tip you off a little bit more?
He's Ranger, mate. So it's either going to go one of two ways. He's either, I would say, going the negative side. Maybe it's a derivative of rank, which in the UK would be not good, a minger, something that's not ideal, or the other way, which is hot or fit. So, but I don't know which way to lean there. So,
well, neither.
Yeah.
Let me put you out of your misery. Ranger, I believe, disgustingly, is derived from orangutan, and it basically means someone with red hair.
Okay.
Fire crotch. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Ranger, mate.
Okay, so I'll go next, then you can bookend me with your next one. So this is one, I think I used this on a previous recording of The Out of Timers, which hasn't aired yet, so people won't have heard it, but the phrase I used was, oh yeah, I need to suss it out, and I would probably spell that S-U-S-S.
Is that not global, though?
Is it global?
I seem to remember the first time I encountered the word sus was in the writing of Mr. Larry Harmer.
Really? Okay.
Chief, you're slipping, buddy.
Okay.
What else you got?
That's it. That's all I got.
Oh my goodness. Well then, geez, good thing I brought two. So
wait a minute. You got to explain it first.
What, sus?
Yeah.
Oh, to work something out.
Okay,
to basically, like, process of elimination.
Okay, all right, so yeah, Chief has dropped the ball there in a big fashion, because what he's actually done there is not given a Commonwealth colloquialism, he's just given a word in the English language.
Well, Mr. Larry Harmer is... he's a man of words, and he's a very worldly man. I mean, we didn't mention it, but in the issues under consideration... Cobra Commander calls Dr. Mindbender the alopecia arsevogel.
Yes. Now, what does that mean? I meant to Google that and I forgot.
It's Afrikaans. It's South African. I think it's sort of derived from one of the Germanic languages. So, like, from Dutch, perhaps.
Right.
But it actually, its last sort of historical use was in the Afrikaans language. It then kind of was derived into aas fool, which means aas is like carrion, and fool is bird, so it's a vulture, an aas
okay.
fool. Yeah. So aasvogel, he's basically calling Dr. Mindbender a bald vulture.
Yes.
Which is perhaps a little bit redundant, isn't it? But makes for a good bit of alliteration.
Yeah,
Eh?
yeah.
Aloysius aasvogel. My second colloquialism, or is it my third? Jeez, I'm dominating this section now, Chief. But in South African terminology, there's a term called a chorb, which I used this week.
Chorb. Is that CHORB?
I think so.
That
It's
helps
mainly
me.
spoken
That helps
and
me
seldom
nothing,
said.
knowing how it's spelt. Chorb.
Nothing.
Will it give it
Okay.
away if you use it in a sentence?
Yeah, it totally would, but I'm gonna do it anyways
Okay.
because it seems you need the hint. My brew, it's so hot. I've been sweating so much. I'm breaking out with chorbs.
Breaking out with chorbs. No, I don't know.
A chorb is a pimple.
Like I was going to say spot or something like that, but yeah, okay,
Yeah,
right.
dude. Well, then you're on the right track. You
Okay.
should have just thrown your hat in the ring, bro.
Should have done it. You know, what's there's no crime for getting it wrong round here. So yeah, the only crime is not
But
guessing.
knowing you, Chief, you're gonna turn this into a contest. I know you, man. The gauntlet has been thrown down. You're gonna pick it up and throw it right back.
Yeah. Well, you technically have a slight advantage because I think I have been crunching out some of these colloquialisms for about, I don't know how many, 40 episodes or so. So, you know, you're fresh off the
I'll
block.
give that a point.
I'm clutching at any straw I can get. Okay, so you've won that round, if it is indeed a battle. But the next thing
It's
we
the
need
listeners
to...
who win every round, Chief.
The next
They've
thing
been
we need to
enlightened
do is...
into the world of Commonwealth colloquialisms.
So now we're going to go into the question segment of the show, and believe me, this is the first time I'm recording this, not the second, wink wink, and it goes like this. We ask listeners a question. We ask listeners a question. What will they say? What will they do when we ask listeners a question? Yes.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. One take. We asked listeners this week a question that went along these lines. There have been some live-action movies of beloved 80s animated franchises, but are there any that haven't been made into live actions or you know people would want to see done or done again? And we got good responses as always. Christy Reg 42 said Galaxy Rangers. Thoughts?
I have no context for Galaxy Rangers, I'm afraid.
Unfortunately, the Chief is likewise redundant here, but yeah, let's do it. Let's start a Galaxy Rangers petition. Scott Lindsay 5627 said Voltron.
Okay. Yeah, it hasn't been done to the best of my knowledge.
Yep. Have been some
And it's got a big following.
animated movies though, has there? But maybe not a live action.
Oh, gosh, yeah. I'd be down for seeing that, and I have absolutely no real childhood connection to Voltron either.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So-
I've seen that Voltron Lego. Lego released a big Voltron set.
Oh, so good.
It looked really good.
So good.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. I was tempted, man.
A few people mentioned this, and I'll name check them as we come to each one. But the first one here is I'm doing the Instagram post first, but this is Connors_collectibles03 said Mask.
Well, that would be in my top guess. It feels like the logical progression. We've had some very, very wildly successful Transformers movies, even though critically and for the fans they're absolute garbage. We've had some moderately, maybe not so successful G.I. Joe live-action films.
Yeah.
Mask would be like the final gasp, you know. Let's see if they can actually get the essence of the 80s property right. And that would satisfy, on the one hand, Transformers fans and G.I. Joe fans, because it's kind of a synthesis of both ideas.
Yeah.
Vehicle action, and also a kind of an elite group of troopers, rescue guys,
Yeah.
soldiers.
I know you're an Alex Sector man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, I never had Rhino, which was Alex Sector's ride. I did have Condor, And I loved that toy so much. Brad Turner, I think it's just a cool sounding name.
Yeah.
I think I made a lot of guys, like if I was kind of playing kind of Elseworlds G.I. Joe game, I would just call my character Brad Sector. At the bar, ordering drinks. What's your name? Brad Sector. That's my flying bike parked outside.
I want to see you in that role more than life itself right now.
Oh, give me the chance, man, to play a character in Mask, the movie.
Yeah. Let's make it happen, people. Let's start that petition. S-Jubbs for Brad Turner. Den Sybil says Zillion. Unfortunately, apologies, I don't know what Zillion is. Should I?
Dennis power to you, dude.
Yeah.
I better do my research and check that out, because if it's worthy of a live action movie, then best believe it better be good.
That's it.
Yeah.
Then we got Cavball Customs. Love that guy's work. Spiral Zone. Never heard of it.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of kind of vehicular action and very timeous.
Right.
Given the sort of COVID-19 situation, Spiral Zone dealt with a kind of a world that was infected, a sort of a plague world.
Wow.
You'd go out into the Spiral Zone. I could be getting this completely wrong. I'm not, by my own admission, the biggest fan. I remember watching a few episodes as a kid, and that's the kind of the broad stroke that I have. But I know that there are a lot of unique vehicles that came out of it, and seeing those translated into live action would always be a thrill to any fan of nostalgia.
Google's telling me it did one season in 1987 of 65 episodes. So
that's some good going.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
Simon Batty says Visionaries.
I suppose if you liked G.I. Joe, it was a kind of a fantasy extension of that. I mean, the figures were slightly upscaled, but the same O-ring construction, so definitely something that's familiar to us all.
Yeah. Hillbilly.
They used holograms, didn't they?
Yeah, that'd be quality. Hillbilly Harper also seconds The Mask and Centurions as well.
Didn't I tell you that Mask would get the most votes?
You did, yes, you did.
Centurions would be cool.
That would be good. That'd be good. I do remember
Very cool.
Chad D. Zollo says, I'd honestly and sadly have to say none really. Transformers and Joe got butchered. Teenage Mutant Turtles had it really rocky. I don't want to see more get butchered. I mean, I can empathise a little bit with that, but you know, it's sometimes you just got to take a chance, and if it turns out bad, hey, you've got to be in the mindset to write it off and then go back to what you loved, go back to those animated stuff that you loved, because that's not going to change just because someone made a bad movie.
Now, I know you're not a fan of the MCU necessarily, but because it does diverge from comic books.
No, it's not. It's not. I'm not. Well, just to clarify here, I'm not a fan. So
Okay.
I don't think I've watched any of those movies and thought that film was rubbish. I don't. You know, they're not bad movies. That's not what I'm saying. And I think it's not that they diverge from the comics. I don't know. It's just they. I just
you can't deny that it's rocketed characters like Black Panther into the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah, Black Panther's great. I mean, I just think the summation is I don't like them as much as the majority of people like them. You know, I still think they're good movies. So yeah.
The reason I've raised the MCU is sometimes it just takes that lightning in the bottle moment to propel something, and if treated properly, you know, this is a case of like 2 misfires and maybe the third we're going to get a win. It's waiting in the wings for an 80s property to really, really take off.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from just acknowledging what at the core is the recipe for success. Like, these things were huge in their day with kids. What was it? Why was this a winning concept? Why did this one get off the ground in ways that 1,000 other failed ideas before it did not? And I don't think Transformers succeeded in that, and G.I. Joe definitely didn't succeed in that.
Yeah.
So maybe it could still happen. So I'm gonna say to that point of like not meddling with these properties, I want the filmmakers to keep punching until the other guy, you know, hits the ropes.
That's it. Yeah, point well made. Fuzzheads_vintage_toys says Micronauts. Now, I don't know much about Micronauts, but I hear it's pretty good.
In the wake of like Ant-Man movies, it might be interesting.
Yeah.
Though it feels like that was where they were going with that film anyway, kind of introducing a microverse.
Yeah.
And doesn't Marvel... Isn't... the Micronauts are now owned by Hasbro.
Right.
So it would be a licensing thing.
Yes. Yes.
Because, I mean, for a time, Marvel Comics were responsible for the Micronauts.
That's right, yeah,
and
yeah.
they were crossovers. They were in the Marvel universe. I think Spidey crossed over with the Microverse.
Possibly, yep.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Nocturno5 says Bravestar.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
I do like some Bravestar.
Damn, that would be cool.
That would be good. We need a new Western fantasy kind of movie or franchise, so let's get to see a Bravestar movie.
Slash sci-fi.
Oh, yeah.
So cool. Great designs and just a great aesthetic, which I think could be treated nicely and seriously. Like Tex Hex realized in live action could be one of the most spooky villain designs ever put to celluloid or digital.
Yep, hundreds brew. Listen, Sid Saboya, and again, please, I apologise if I'm butchering any of these names, but Sid Saboya says Jace, and I presume that's Jason the Wheeled Warriors, which I think I remember watching, and I think it was okay. Any memories of that?
No, man, we didn't get it back in South Africa.
Collectors _solution, another vote for Visionaries. Gabor _2018 is just giving us lots of hand claps. That's nice. Doug Zalondek says mask could work. We have the tech to do the transitions both in practical and digital and make it look good. The only problem is the teams will barely ever wear the most important part of the costume and the namesake, the mask. Muscle. Things could be a crazy cartoon if they were able to go all out on it.
No, I don't take that point about the cast not wearing the masks. I mean, the MCU managed to clothe one of the sort of the biggest stars of our time in a mask most of the time.
Yeah.
And Robert Downey Jr., by his own admission, is like, that's great. Every time that mask flips down, I'm back at my trailer having a party. Yeah. It's the CG artists that are responsible for bringing Iron Man to life. Yeah. I'm not advocating that the mask cast suddenly becomes CG when they put their masks on. That'd be garbage. Yeah. But you could put a stuntman in there. Yeah. It'd be like the Power Rangers.
Yeah. Wardog _Apollo says 4 of these cartoons exist in a shared universe. Sorry, 5, I didn't see Mask there.
I caught that as well, and I thought to myself, is he referring to the shared universe that exists between G.I. Joe and Transformers because of one animated cartoon that referenced the G.I. Joe team? There was a kind of an old Cobra Commander in one of the, I think it's the 3rd season of the Transformers cartoon. Right. So that's the connection between the two Hasbro properties.
Unless he's referencing the IDW shared universe, because isn't that Mask, Transformers, G.I. Joe? Who else is in that? Rom Space Knight.
Sure.
Someone else.
But if he was just speaking from cartoons...
Yeah, I'm not sure there's 5 cartoons that are in a shared universe, no.
Well, G.I. Joe and Transformers, there's one. Cops shares a universe with G.I. Joe.
Okay, so 3.
Cops takes place in the future, and there's a character who is Beachhead's, I think, nephew?
Yeah, possibly.
Could be mistaken, but it's definitely... There's a Sneeden in both continuities.
Yep. So we've got 3 there. But then he says, sorry, I didn't see Mask. But I'm pretty sure in the animated cartoon, Mask is not part of the shared universe of G.I. Joe.
Yeah, different studio, I think.
Okay, cool. Phil Prott says, Crystar, Crystal Warrior, sci-fi-ish fantasy is my catnip.
Nice, bit of an obscure choice. I mean, they'd certainly go after He-Man before they would do Crystar. Okay. I can assure you that. Yeah. And maybe even the Thundercats before that. But geez, deep cut.
Yeah. No mention of Thundercats yet. Interestingly.
Oh dear.
Real Helly says, "Leave them all alone. I'm tired of awful reboots." Felt so strong. Posted that message twice. Mr. Crispy 2.0. Mask could make an incredible action film. So Mask is leading the race here. That's for sure. Let's check out what was said over on the Twitter. Peter Seddon, friend of the show, friend of the Chief Dog, said John Woo was down to have directed He-Man at one point. That would have been interesting, at least. Joe underscore Hunter 73 said they made a live action Jungle Book, so why not a live action Tailspin?
Beautiful.
I want to see that. Yeah.
Yes. Baloo flying a plane.
That's it. Brilliant. Action figures and comic, is that collectors or collections? Bionic 6. I think I remember Bionic 6.
I loved Bionic 6.
Yeah.
And since Bionic 6 was kind of an offshoot of the idea of the $6 Million Man, which was a live-action TV show, like, yeah, it would come full circle if they had this. I think essential to it, though, is setting it in the 80s. I don't know, part of me is like, characters like Meg, for instance, just don't exist outside of that Cyndi Lauper, blingy face,
Yes.
big hair, shoulder pads. The Bionic 6... underrated gem in my eyes.
Yeah, all right.
We got it in South Africa when we didn't get a whole bunch of other things, so we really kind of imprinted on that.
Yeah.
And same thing with the action figures.
I don't remember it much, but is it like Bionic 6, something like that?
Oh, it's a great
Is
thing,
it?
bro.
Okay, fine. I'm
Yeah.
gonna dig
Yeah,
up some
yeah.
episodes. Bloody hell, more homework. Dig up some of that.
There was an episode of Toy Galaxy where they addressed Bionic 6, how scheduling really screwed it up.
Oh, really?
Because the tune was out before the toys were released.
Ah.
So no one bought the toys because by the time the toys were on the shelves, the tune had come off the air, and so it wasn't relevant anymore.
Interesting.
Fortunately, in South Africa, these things landed at the same time. That is the advantage of having a slight delay on everything.
Yeah.
So we gobbled them up.
Good stuff.
And yeah, Bionic 6 is a favorite for me.
Okay.
I'd love to see
Yeah,
a
yeah.
live action.
Little Wookie says Visionaries would be pretty epic if done right. So another Visionary. So Visionaries, I think, is second to Mask at the moment here. G.I. Joe Aficionado says Starcom. It could be the greatest space-based sci-fi flick in a long time. They would have to drop the Space Force tag, though. I'm not familiar with Starcom.
Something that Jim Godfrey also mentioned over on the G.I. Joe book thread, because I shamelessly pasted this this question on our G.I. Joe book group. That's 2 votes for Starcom. I don't know. I think there are better sci-fi properties to bring to the live-action realm ahead of Starcom. And it's another Jim Godfrey suggestion, and that's Gundam.
Yeah.
Holy crap! How epic would it be to finally see a live-action Gundam movie?
Yeah, that would be sweet.
Why haven't we?
Yep. We66 Illustration says Dino Riders. Not familiar with that myself.
Okay. Another thing that was perhaps bigger in South Africa than the rest of the world.
I think what we're also...
I know Paul from G.I. Joe Book loves Dino Riders.
Okay. So I think
It's basically like dinosaurs slapped with like lasers and armor and stuff, and given like pilots.
Got it.
You know, two warring alien races crash land on prehistoric Earth.
Yes.
Kind of like Transformers,
Okay,
actually.
yeah.
Except instead of being a suspended animation, their conflict rages immediately.
Right.
So they co-opt these giant hulking Earth monsters called the dinosaurs into their struggle.
Yeah. I think what we're finding out here is the Chief has not watched as many animated shows as a kid as he thought he did. Anyway, Cypher...
More homework.
Cypher 79... Mask could do well, and G.I. Joe would have done, and still could, if they stuck to the original premise rather than what they produced. Metal Viper says Spiral Zone. Says another one for Spiral Zone. John Kent says RoboForce. Not familiar with that, unfortunately. Any thoughts on RoboForce?
No, man. That I have absolutely
Okay.
not even a recollection of the term.
Right.
RoboForce?
Yep.
Not Robotech.
No, RoboForce. I'll Google that up after this. Boba Fett says Cops. Boba Fett double F. Love it. That's a good handle there, dude.
Quality.
He says Cops, or she says Cops. Masters of the Universe and Silverhawks could be insane if they gave the movies decent budgets and embraced what made the cartoons fun. Thundercats, G.I. Joe and Galaxy Rangers could work, but I fear those properties will always be tinkered with and never done in the vein of the shows. So there's our first Thundercats. And then C. Robeson says, Man, the Memories, to sum it all up. I don't think that's a show. I think that's just
A sentiment.
These segments are going long. These last question segments, but that's fine because
I'll tighten it
that's
up.
what we're all. That's what we're all about. But I do need to hit up the Facebook quickly. Dave Reese, no chance of it, but one of the more easily translatable ones would be The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers. So that's 3 votes for Galaxy Rangers. Here we go. Jim Godfrey. How dreamy would a Neil Blomkamp directed Centurions be? That would be
Jeez.
pretty out there, I think. That'd be good.
We did get Centurions in South Africa, so a young Neil Blomkamp would have possibly seen
Yep.
it.
Peter Seddon's back on here, and he also says, always had a soft spot for Visionaries and Dungeons and Dragons. Well, they did make a Dungeons and Dragons live-action movie, I think, didn't they? And I don't think it was very good.
Jeez. No, must have faded into obscurity because I have no recollection of that.
I'm pretty sure they did, but more Visionaries.
Wild.
And then Matt Smith says, I think that's Smudger, they could all work if the material is taken seriously. I thought the recent Bumblebee movie was a good example. I'd love a Visionaries done by Peter Jackson to get the Lord of the Rings vibe, and I think he could make it epic as well as get the tone of the movie and the special effects right. So
Right. On one hand, Tolkien and Academy Awards. On the other hand, 80s cartoon property.
Yeah.
I'm sure Peter Jackson would jump at the opportunity.
I think what we can safely say there is late surge by Visionaries probably topped it above Mask, actually, for the top two. So
What?
interesting.
Incredible.
Interesting.
Yowza.
Yep.
Something that I'm surprised didn't get more votes is Macross / Robotech.
Okay, yes, yeah, I know of it, but I can't say that I've watched that many episodes.
Are you familiar with Battle of the Planets? That's something that I caught wind of on the G.I. Joe book thread.
Yeah, love. Well, I used to always call it G-Force. Now, G-Force was the name of the team, wasn't it? And I always, me and the other kids used to call it G-Force, even though, obviously, like you say, it was Battle of the Planets or was it Gatchaman?
Gatchaman.
Yeah.
Stylish 70s cartoon.
Yeah,
That's very
that was
cool.
kind of a little bit Moonraker-y, kind of Roger Moore Bondy, wasn't it? The villain, what was it?
I love the henchmen with their bell bottoms.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
That was. I think there were rumours of that. I'm pretty sure I saw a either fan-made trailer or a trailer of a movie that was going to come out that didn't, and it looked pretty good from what I saw. But yeah, still waiting on that.
I thank the listeners for those incredible responses, man.
Yes,
and sorry if we didn't mention anyone, if we missed anyone, but wonderful suggestions.
Yeah, as always, the
Jeez.
show lives and dies by you, the listeners. So we appreciate that feedback, that interaction. It's what makes it all worth doing. So thanks for that. We are running long, and it's a good trend because I enjoy talking to you on this show and all the stuff we cover. So we can run as long as you want, buddy. But you've got more editing work to do. But listen,
no, buddy, I've got a wife to get back to. She's going to be waking up any minute now.
That's it.
I'm going to be the one that wakes her up.
That's it. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do so in all the usual places. That's talking_Joe on the Twitter. It's Talking Joe Comics on the Instagram. It's talkingjoecomics@gmail.com. We maybe had another email come in, and is remiss of me. I think I've forgot to look that up and read it out. Be sure I'll do that next time. So apologies for that if you did write in an email and I haven't read it out this week. The other place you can get us is Talking Joe, a G.I. Joe podcast on Facebook. Where can the fine people find you, sir, if they want to look at your work?
Ha! G-I-J-O-B-U-R-G. G.I. Joeberg on Podbean, Twitter, Stitcher, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I said that already. Facebook. We got a Facebook group. Ask to join. There's a very easy question, and hey, even if you get the question wrong, I might still accept you anyway because it amuses me. Yeah, man, you can't miss. We're everywhere. Yeah. We do things, especially since we're on lockdown. Yeah. We do more things than usual.
Yeah, the guys are pumping out the quality content weekly, well, even more than weekly. So it's always good stuff. So that should be your first port of call for Joe-related news and goings on. You can find me on my other podcast, The Outer Timers. That's the Outer OUTTA Timers. I think we're up to about 10 episodes now. We've got a new movie segment starting with next week's episode. No more unappreciated sequels. We've got something new planned. We're also going to try and get this man S-Jubb 7 on for an episode to talk about adult collecting of retro toys, which will be good. I've also
talk is cheap, Chief. Get me on, man.
That's it.
Set a date.
Well,
I
think we're going to get Ben's missus on next week. You're lined up for the week after, but if she bails, you better be ready by that headset and mic because we'll call on you on short notice. I've also started up my personal Instagram feed, which is Chiefy2Shoes. That's Chiefy number 2 shoes. Because what I'm doing there is I'm posting daily cartoon strips. There'll be 38 in total. And these chronicle the 2015 birth of my kid. So I had a bit of brief background before you go lumbering over there not knowing what you're getting into. I had ordered on Kickstarter, or pledged to a Kickstarter, of a magnetic comic strip. It comes with 3 panels and these kind of magnetic characters that you can put on with a dry white marker, make your own comic strip. So I decided, when my wife got called, and me as well, got called into the hospital, I would chronicle the day by writing comic strips every time something happened during the labour process. And I will be posting these up one a day for the next 38 days. So go over to Chiefy2Shoes. You can find me on Instagram, and I'll be posting those up. So have a look.
Beautiful.
And
man.
with all that
Lovely.
said and done, we will catch you down the road.
Bye.
Laters.